I'm Chef Jasper, and today we're in the kitchen making a delicious dish I know all of your family and friends will enjoy. And it's fairly simple. Now, I love onion soup, one of my favorite dishes. How about preparing onion soup and pork chops together? And really, in a few minutes, once we cook those pork chops and set them aside and put this onion soup together, the dish goes by pretty quickly. So let's start off with some beautiful pork chops. Look at these. Are they absolutely beautiful? A little bit of olive oil in our pan. And of course, we'll add the pork chops. Oh yes. Listen to that sizzle. We'll just do about 3 of them. A little salt and pepper right on top. And of course, a little salt. Now we want a good sear on this. You may want to lower the heat at this time, just a little bit. Oh yes. Now, French onion soup, of course, old recipe, brought to France by the Italians. You know I had to throw that in there. Caterina de' Medici, when she married the King of France, she brought her court of cooks with her, and they introduced the carabaccia, or the onion soup, to the French. So what better combination do we have here than with pork chops? All right. Let's kind of peek under this. Oh, we're getting a nice sear. And that's kind of what we want. And don't forget, in an old-fashioned, original, authentic onion soup, we would actually put a little bacon in here, or some fat back or pork belly. But we have the pork in here, so I'm gonna do everything in the pan once I remove the chops. So we like a little scrapings on the bottom. You know, we'll kind of just mix it around very quickly here. All right, I think we're about ready to turn. This is what we want, just like this right here. And, of course, a little more salt. Now, not too much, because remember, we're going to add more salt and pepper to our onion soup. There we go. And let this cook just for a few more minutes, because again, it's going to bake in the oven and really bring up the temp that we want. And just look at these pork chops. Are they absolutely perfect? Now let's remove them from the pan. And remember what I was telling you about. The bottom of this pan, that's what we want. So let's start kind of scraping the bottom of this pan here. Add some of the butter. Not all of it, I have a lot of butter here. And kind of take off the fire a little bit. And let's add our onions. So I pre-sliced these onions. Looks like a lot, but remember, once we start cooking the onions down, they're going to caramelize. And we'll reduce this down with a little bit of sherry wine. It's not going to hurt to add a little more butter if you want to. But these are going to caramelize just perfect. And look what I'm doing with the pan here. This is what I'm talking about. This is our flavor. So instead of the pork belly or pieces of bacon, we have the goodies from the bottom of the pan. Oh yes. Continue to cook these down, and we'll add a little salt and pepper to the pan. Some cracked pepper. And of course some salt. Now, do not, and you got to make sure, add your herbs or the bay leaf at this point. Be patient, because the herbs will just disappear and you'll really give them a different flavor. The bay leaf I'm not really as worried about, but we'll leave the bay leaf once we add the, we'll leave it to when we add the broth. All right, they're cooking down. And remember, if you want, you can brown these as much as you'd like. I like mine a little more, whole and kind of put together. But sometimes I like to cook them down all the way if I'm just doing a small little onion soup, starter course. But here we kind of want to smother these pork chops with this once they're finished. And you may want to raise the heat at this point because these are really cooking down just perfect. Look at that. You can kind of feel them when you touch it with the back of the spoon. All right. We'll leave these alone for a few minutes while they settle up and reduce. All right, these onions are really cooking down just what we want. And at this point, we're going to add some butter right in the middle and let it sizzle a little bit. And then we're going to splash the pan with a little bit of sherry wine. But what's going to happen here, we're actually giving the onions more flavor. That's a good thing, because at the end of a dish, we like to add a little bit of butter and cook it down, kind of bring everything together. And that's what this is doing right now. And now, make sure your pan is just the right temperature. A little bit of creamed sherry wine. And look at this broth come together here. Look at this. Oh my gosh, you can smell this. Unbelievable. Yes, I do love this dish. This is the caramelization. This is what we want right now. It is happening. Remember what I told you, how much we're cooking this down. So look how much onions we have left now. We're about half, probably. Let's reduce the pan more with our beef broth. Now remember with the bay leaves, we're going to remove those before we serve them. Don't forget. Get your thyme and just sprinkle it in there, just like that. Just perfect. Let's cook this down. Not too long. Let's give this a taste for seasoning. Oh, it's rich. It's good. Maybe another minute or so. Now, a lot of people like to add the butter at this point, but I don't want to thicken this up anymore. That's why I add the butter towards the end of cooking the onions instead. All right. Let's make room for the pork chops. How about that? Now remember, this is going to cook down a little more. Smother this with all that juice and those onions. I don't think it gets any better. If you want to add a little more broth, if you want a soupier version, go right ahead. Now, the Gruyere cheese right on top. Just break up some slices, or you can shred some, it's up to you. I have a bad habit. I think I use too much Gruyere. That's a good problem to have, if you want my opinion. And that's it. Now, we can either cover this at this point and let the cheese melt, or we could put it in about a 350, 375 oven for a few minutes just to kind of finish everything off. And then we'll serve it. Believe me, it's going to be delicious. brought to you by Hen House Markets.